Welcome to the promoted podcast. My name is Michael Furey, and Sorry. Welcome to the promoted podcast. I get to open today. My name is Michael Furey. I am the director here at WeAspire, co-founder with my beautiful wife Felicity, who's normally the opening these podcasts. And today, my co-host is the wonderful Renee Wootton. Renee, how you going?
I am so good. It's so great to be here with you this morning. I've had a Fury morning this morning. I've spoken to your wife. We had a great chat. And now I'm here with you and we're going to have another great chat. So it's a great start to a Monday morning for a recording.
Super. So I'm on the gubby land, which is what I really like about these conversations. It kind of gets me connected to this Indigenous First Nation heritage that we kind of embrace here in Australia, which is beautiful and tricky as well at the same time, I think, in many ways. So whereabouts are you, Renee, today?
I'm calling in from beautiful Larrakia country. And yes, feel very blessed that we are Australian and have the incredible history and culture that we do here, which is First Nations culture. So shout out to anyone that is either Indigenous or has a strong appreciation for First Nations culture. And I really encourage everyone to, if you haven't learned a little bit about the country that you're on, go off and do that and learn about the people that kept, maintained, and helped prosper the lands that you benefit from today.
That's very, very cool. And I think it kind of speaks quite nicely to today's topic around alignment. And this episode is specifically for people who are perhaps in their careers and they're going, is this really all there is now? Do I just do this for like 40 years? And this was Renee's idea initially, but I think we've both got some perspectives around this topic and how you can actually navigate this process, because I think there is a realization once you've kind of got through the excitement of your maybe first couple of jobs, you've found some career success, and then you sometimes, I find often with people, they go, is this really it? What's your take on this place, Renee?
I have that feeling and thought probably every couple of months, if not yearly. Like, I really think deeply about, am I doing the things that really matter to me? And it's become a really beautiful habit that I've built into my life, because I have lived throughout my life in periods of unalignment, trying to satisfy other people's expectations, trying to chase someone else's version of success, doing what society says I should do, whether that's getting a degree, then getting a career, and then making money and buying a house. Like, these are all the things that we're born into as Western privileged people. And I think that there is so much to be said for sitting back and reflecting on, is that society's version of success and happiness, or is that my version of success and happiness? And I think that's what we wanted to get into today, because a lot of people don't talk about this. A lot of people talk about, hey, I bought that house and I got that job and I finished that degree, but no one really talks about how happy they are and if that actually truly brings them joy. And that's what we want to do today. We want to really speak to the people that have done the things that society says. And I want you to take the moment to reflect on, is it everything you hoped it would be? And if it's not, let's have that conversation. Mike, tell me.
Well, I want to start. I think first I want to talk about how, like, this alignment is kind of what we're saying here is not static. And I think I definitely thought that, perhaps when I left school or university or kind of that early stage, like, I was clear, I just want to get a job, earn some money. And I was surprised or taken aback by how much priorities can shift and continue to shift actually throughout your life. And I think when this first happened to me, and I think the biggest one for me was around kids, actually, because I just thought I was just going to be this super successful career-driven guy. And kids, all of a sudden, you're holding this new bubba in your hands and you're like, oh my God, like, this work seems so ridiculous compared to how important this new life is now. And I think for me, it really took me, it kind of rocks me to my bed, because you start to realize how much a career can be built on, as you said, many of those things you alluded to, kind of superficial nature of acquiring things, whether you've got a nice car, a nice house, or whatever. It can be so materialistic. And actually, when we start to dig in, we go, oh, actually, this is quite unfulfilling, even when you've had a nice car, a nice house in the right area, whatever it might be. And so, and then but it's interesting, even when you go through kids, and that can be quite profound for a lot of people. And then it comes back to, well, what school are they going to go to? And I've got to put them through the right school, and I've got to put them to have the nice school in the nice area. It actually can revert back to keeping up with the Joneses, as it were.
Yes.
From a different area. And now the school, or whatever that thing is, or the holidays you take, or the clothes you put them in, become about this competing in that materialistic sense. And what we're talking to is it can feel unfulfilling if you get caught up in that piece.
Yeah, absolutely. I listened to this great podcast recently about the fact that, I think back as evolution had it with the caveman, like status and achievement was really driven by like your size and what people you could attract around you. Whereas in a world where that stuff doesn't matter anymore, it's status and collecting things is the way that you show your worth to society. And that's such an interesting evolution of the way that we prioritize our time and how we want to show up. And I think that realization over many years of status is something subjective. It means something different to everybody. If I think about my 20s, I wanted to wear the nicest clothes with the nicest brands, and I couldn't wait to buy a Louis Vuitton bag when I had enough money one day. And now that's the furthest thing from my mind. I have prioritized education. I've prioritized my lifestyle and finding the right people to live around me so that I can live a happy, wholesome life in a career that I love. But it wasn't that simple. So I would love to hear from you today, Michael. Where did you start, and how have you transitioned your life to live in alignment? Like, what were those moments where you went, something's not adding up here. I don't feel happy. I've got the wife, I've got the car, or I've got the job, and I still don't feel happy. What was that moment? Did you have that moment? And how did you pivot or get out of it?
Well, I think buying my first Mercedes-Benz was the best. In fact, in terms of this kind of typifies this moment for me, because like growing up, my parents had like Toyotas, and it's usually secondhand Toyotas. And I didn't realize until actually in my 30s how much like obsessed I am about cars, because I just thought it was normal to spend a lot of time on carsales.com.au and scroll cars.
Yeah.
And it's quite recently I'm like, oh, wow, this is kind of weird that I'm really into cars. And I go through this continuous struggle of, and this is a real first world problem, of like linking a nice car with a successful life, right?
Yeah.
I literally, I don't know when that happened. I don't know if it was as a teenager, watching Top Gear or something like that. It kind of like just cemented in me, but it's something it's kind of like unknown about myself that actually that's how I see the world. So when I first ran my first business, we were doing pretty well actually in the first couple of months. And so I automatically thought, well, what successful people do was I have to buy a Mercedes-Benz. And I saw it on Top Gear, and about 3 weeks later, I ended up buying a GLC. And if you've ever been in a GLC, they are beautiful vehicles, and Mercedes-Benzes are awesome. And
I didn't know this about you. I didn't know that you bought a Mercedes-Benz. Amazing.
It was great. And for a bit, it was amazing. I remember picking up Felicity. Felicity had never been in a really fancy pants car either, and she was like, "Ooh, this is nice." And so we were driving around in this Merc, and it was great. And then what's interesting is that finance enables you to basically not have to have done the work to buy the nice things, right? It means that you can get an $80,000 car and you can just pay $2,000-$3,000 a month or whatever it is for it.
Yeah.
And the tricky thing with that is that if you're not well set up, then that monthly amount actually can be quite tricky to cover. And that's what I ran into in terms of the business. The business started to falter. The sales wasn't as good. And actually, ultimately, my quote unquote success was in many ways just a charade. So 10 months down the track, I ended up giving the Mercedes-Benz back to Mercedes-Benz. Then I had to go through a negotiation with Mercedes-Benz Finance because they were in a negative equity situation where the car wasn't as worth as much as I owed them. And it was that point where I go, wow, that was not as fulfilling as I thought it might be.
Yeah.
And it also made me like question when you drive around, you see a lot of people buying these nice cars, and you're like, wow, they must be so successful. I knew my account balance, I knew the situation I was in personally, and I still had the external success factor. And so for me, that going through that whole process, giving it back, running into financial strife more broadly around my business as well, really kind of like, yeah, I had dark moments in there going, what is this all about? Like and I think when you link material success to your success, and I say link as in like it becomes who you are, these objects that you own actually own you. And I know I'm not the first person to say that, but I always remember now, like when I owned the Mercedes-Benz, I would continually worry about people scratching it when it was parked. And I remember thinking, I'd be sat at a cafe, I'm like, I wonder if the car's okay. And I was like, this sucks that you're thinking about an object which is not here right now because you're worried that if it does get scratched, how are you going to afford to fix it up or blah, 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 blah.
Yeah,
and it's
interesting.
like really all this other stuff now is what you worry about. And I hear this when it happens when it comes with boats and planes and stuff like that, is you're worried about all this other maintenance and stuff like that. So that was the first time for me where like, oh, wow, maybe this isn't it. And then, well, if this isn't it, what is it? What about you?
Amazing. So that was such a good example of like, living a life not in alignment with your values and your capability, I guess, your capacity to finance it, and also how we make decisions, really big decisions that impact our life, our mental health, our standing, our self-identity. In one simple example, it's crazy, right? And the influence, and I think it's so prevalent in every single person that goes through life and does the job and then gets the career. And then you get to that point, as you opened with, is this what it was all meant to be? And is this enough? And wow, I actually don't want this anymore. Or, a whole bunch of feelings might emerge. It might be exactly what you want and exactly what you plan on doing for the rest of your life in some instances. But I would say the majority of people that I have met go through kind of the process of doing the things that we need to do to become quote unquote successful. And then they go, oh God, it's actually not that great. What am I going to do now? And I have absolutely been through that experience as well. So for me, I went through this internship program when I had first joined university. And through that internship program, it was Career Trackers, the Indigenous internship program, where they linked us as kind of first generation tertiary qualified Indigenous interns to paid internships. And I was in the second year of this program ever running. It's like gone on to be over 15 years old now. And thousands of people have benefited from the experience of just getting that first step in the door to a paid job, but also a job that aligns with your tertiary studies. It's been game-changing for generations and thousands of young Indigenous people across Australia. So very, very proudly associated with that program. But I went through as the first aerospace engineer. And so I was all of a sudden thrust into the spotlight in ways. I was given opportunities to speak, to support people, to inspire people with my own story. And with that came awards. I won a Project Excellence Award, and I was spoken about very highly across this community. And when I graduated, I was no longer as part of the intern program, which meant, we didn't get to do leadership training as much, or we didn't get to be as involved in the community week by week. It was kind of, you moved into the alumni category, and there was a lot more hands-off at that time. And it really challenged my identity and self-worth. I got out of the program. I was now in a fully paid job, and I wasn't getting as much limelight. And I was like, huh, it's so interesting. Like,
Yeah.
who am I without career trackers? Who am I without all of this limelight? Literally. And it was such an important part of my journey and my experience.
Wow.
Because I had to all of a sudden be happy with who I was and stop searching for external validation.
Mm.
And it was the most important lesson for me that it doesn't matter what other people think about who I am, what I'm achieving, and how great I am in their eyes. It's about how do I wake up and be happy with who I am and the choices I'm making and how I choose to spend my time. And honestly, it took me probably minimum a year, maybe 2 years to work through who am I and how do I value my self-worth when other people aren't constantly reinforcing that. And so that's my kind of example of like, am I living in alignment? Because for a long time I was chasing getting the next award or getting the invite to go and do that speech. And that was in those moments I was like, oh yeah, like that feels right because I've been doing this for 4 years, 5 years now. And then when that program ended, I had to understand what actually made me happy and how I wanted to spend my time so that I was happy with that rather than, getting these accolades. Does that make sense?
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah. So I had a really great chat with another intern who also did phenomenal in this program. He won, a trip around the world fully paid because he was intern of the year of this community group. And then he became a dad and he sat down and he was like, my whole life and everything that I had done up until this point has now just completely like, I'm at a blank canvas. I'm not the person I was last year. I'm not getting nearly as much validation. I don't get invited to things anymore because I literally can't balance it, and it was such an important moment. So in all of that, I don't think I was living in alignment with my values. I don't think that I was making decisions that supported my holistic life and the things that bring me joy and happiness and how I want to spend my time. I, for example, was saying yes to every opportunity thrown my way because I thought that that was the right thing to do to then get that next piece of validation, to then show that, yes, I am worthy and I am smart enough. And then when those opportunities weren't coming anymore, I had to sit deeply and go, why am I chasing all of this? And it wasn't a conscious decision at the time. It became conscious when I realized that I couldn't live my life in the same routine anymore, if that makes sense.
Totally get it. So, Renee, we are going to keep this session to 20 minutes. So I'm just curious, what are your reflections of a powerful perspective, and hopefully you found some purpose beyond career trackers, which is humorous from my perspective because you've done so much.
Yeah.
But I can totally get the naivety of it and the kind of like the rawness of it. And even the way you're speaking, like it's like serious for you. It's like, it was no joke.
It was a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that kind of highlights for me, like when people are going through this, it can really feel serious. And I think a lot of people I've spoken to, they go to, I should just quit. I should just quit what I'm doing. I should just whatever. I wouldn't be necessarily a proponent of that. I think actually, if that's kind of there's a strong urge to do that.
Yep.
But I think we also need to understand there's an economic world that we live in, and that you have to be able to maintain and keep up with the economic pressure that we all must kind of navigate. But what's your take on it in terms of like if we had to turn it into a reflection at this point, what would you say?
So I think for me, I got really clear on what opportunities I do want to chase and making sure that for the right reasons. So rather than speaking at events and saying yes to every opportunity, going, hang on, is that a good use of my time? Will that make me happy? Is that going to benefit the audience that I want to influence, i.e. I'm really driven by inspiring the next generation, making and ensuring that young people feel empowered to chase what they deserve and do that with the skills that they need to be able to execute. And that's a big part of why I do this podcast and why I choose to spend my time in this way, because I really find joy out of showing people their full potential. So that meant now all of a sudden I wasn't going to go and speak on random topics with different corporate businesses. Instead, I was going to only say yes to opportunities that work for me. I also wasn't going to accept every opportunity that aligned with that. I was instead going to prioritize me time, downtime, or the other goals that I had in my life that really filled my cup, which is spending time with friends and family, focusing on my relationship, making sure that I get to the beach or get out in nature and just find peace in my surrounds, kind of like a form of meditation, I suppose. But then also choosing the right job. There was a period in my career for years where I just felt like something was missing. I was showing up to work, I was doing a good job, but it felt kind of empty. I wasn't feeling like I was getting out what I was putting in. And it made me question then, maybe I need something that's much bigger than me. I don't need just a cushy job that's easy to do and repetitive. I need something that's going to force me to constantly grow and contribute to something that held much more meaning than just me being able to rock up to a job that had the right brand and label on it and meant that I could flutter around town and say that I worked for this company. And a lot of people, you laugh at that, but a lot of people were driven by that.
True.
Amongst the people that I worked for, everyone was like, oh my God, I work for this company and like, this is my job. And I was not driven by that. And that was something I was able to really reflect on that, hey, that doesn't provide me with a sense of purpose. So for me, it also led to getting really clear on what jobs are going to provide that to me. So it took me years to learn this about myself. And this is what I want to make really clear today. You won't figure this stuff out overnight, and it takes you years to make choices in alignment with who you are, how you want to spend your time, and unfortunately, it constantly evolves. To your point, this is not static. It's a dynamic thing, living in alignment. When kids come along, when parents get sick, when you need to move because your partner has to move for their job, you have to keep changing and realigning to get to a place where you're really comfortable with how you spend your time, with who you spend your time with, and how you choose to spend your time in your job. So for me, it's been an incredible journey. I have loved learning to live in alignment. I have loved the examples we've talked through today that show that no matter where you are in your career, we always think based on what society says that things will make us happy. Sometimes they do, but sometimes we get there and we realize it's really not for me. So this is really a call out. I'm just going to say quickly, this is a call out to reflect, to self-reflect. And if it doesn't feel great, start looking at what you need to change. Michael, what were you going to say?
I love you. This is like, you are passionate about this topic. I'm like, wow, this is.
I love it.
I call out, come on, call to arms. I think if I can, the only thing I would add here is I think if you're in that situation right now, it can be really a bit overwhelming. And actually it can feel like, oh my God, Renee's called me to like step it up and take action. I think it's really important to understand that if you find yourself in a situation of not being in alignment, it's actually in some ways a very powerful way for you to learn. And it's a bit like, working out what you want to do in your career. One of the fastest ways to do that is just do a bunch of stuff you don't and figure out what you don't like. And what you don't like is really helpful for illuminating the road, which might be more fulfilling. So if you're in a situation right now where you don't feel aligned, you're like, oh my God, I'm working on this blah, blah, blah project and I want to poke my eyes out. Yeah. Great. Use that as a way to help you understand what is it about that which doesn't align with you? What is it that it's teaching you about yourself? And then what is it that had you take that job recently or take it up, which actually is unfulfilling for you? I had someone just recently, when we were talking, she had this realization that actually she settles in life. She goes for what's easy to access, not what she really is ambitious or wants to. And that's the uncomfortable realization that we settle, that we, take the easy road, but it's one we can all relate to. And it's very powerful because it then presents a question, well, what do you want to do moving forward? And I think it's very important when you come to these reflections is to be strategic. Don't knee-jerk is kind of a tempting response, which is cool, but also be responsible with it, especially if you've got other people that you're responsible for. And I think not to panic. Panic is never a great way to think clearly. I think understanding, okay, cool, I'm not in alignment here, taking the time as you recommended, Renee, I think is really powerful. And then setting a and bringing other people into the mix. What would alignment look like? Us seeking out different perspectives, I think, would be something I'd also say. Don't do it in kind of what's in a silo, as it were, because I think you'll end up with poorer outcomes. I think just invite reflection, invite perspectives, reach out to Renee, reach out to us if that's helpful. And then, see, okay, what could alignment look like? What could I do with my expertise, experience, whatever, which might ultimately find more fulfilling.
Yeah. And I think as well, to that point, it took me years to live in alignment. For example, I worked for a tech startup maybe 8 years ago, and I realized I love the tech startup environment, but actually I moved into a tech startup that was completely out of aviation. And so in that time, I realized, I really miss aviation, but I love the people that I'm working with and how motivated and curious they are. So then I went back into this big aviation organization and then realized something's off. People aren't as motivated. People don't drive me and don't have that same alignment and curiosity and values that I have. So then now, only at 30 years old, so last year, I finally found my dream job that I'm currently working in. But it took off the back of 13, 14 years of different career experience to realize that environment was for me. These sorts of people with these sorts of values are the people that I want to work with. And I have to do it in the aviation industry because nothing makes my fire burn brighter than when I'm living in alignment with my values. And that is aviation, honest people with high integrity and achieving huge, challenging feats with project delivery. So that's my recap. We're putting it out to the audience. We really, really want to support you through this journey. It's so important to build a beautiful life that's holistic and in alignment with the things that really bring you happiness. So be curious, think about it deeply, and then start to try and make some changes wherever you can. Michael, is that a wrap?
I'm actually going to say no, it's not a wrap, because I actually think it's okay to live out of alignment sometimes.
I agree.
And I think that's really important to say, actually, because I think so much of alignment speaking and talking to is that actually, I look at my life at the moment and I'm listening to what you're saying is, alignment this, alignment that, and I'm like, it could be easy to think that we're both sat here in complete alignment. Yeah. And I would say at the moment, there's a lack of alignment on my side because I'm working more than I would like to compared to what is important to me in terms of spending time with the kids. However, I see it that if you invest now, you reap rewards later. And so I think that's a very powerful or an important mindset to have, is you have to be able to juggle that tension.
Yeah.
Where what is alignment is more than just I'm doing this living perfectly. We don't live perfect lives. Right now, you may have to take care of elderly parents, and that pulls you away from doing something you love.
Yes.
And alignment might feel out of whack, actually completely unachievable. And so I think it's also the ability to navigate those periods of unalignment, not to try and water down your dream or kind of the idealism there, Renee. I think it's very powerful. I think it's also, we have to have compassion for ourselves.
Agree. It's such a
it's
great
all right. Yeah. Actually, it's all right to live unaligned. You might not want to do it forever, but there's periods where, it's going to be challenging. It's going to be really tricky. And you might often have to just do stuff you don't want to do. And that's okay. Yeah. I think in fact, that's okay. And it's important. Otherwise, we're just going to have everyone just trying to, do a whole bunch of stuff.
But I think also very quickly, the call out for me would be that if you're self-aware enough that you're not living in alignment, that is just as important as understanding what that alignment looks like. So this is not go out and live a perfectly aligned life. This is know yourself well enough to know what makes you tick. That's the call out. And if you have to sacrifice that temporarily, that's still a perfect example of alignment, because you know that it's temporary and you know how you can enhance that or improve that in the future. Yeah, love that. All right, that's it. We've gone way over the 20 minutes, but awesome. As always. Thanks so much for the chat today, Michael. Thanks, everybody.